I'm Jen, and this is Prague, the heart of Europe and my adopted home. Subscribe to get an American's take on this enchanting city and all things Czech. Welcome to the adventure.
Ahoj všichni. This is part 2 of my video about what it's like to always be a foreigner where you live. In part 1, I talked about all the positive aspects of being a foreigner, so you should definitely check that video out after you watch this one. But it's not all sunshine and roses. In fact, there are a lot of negative aspects to always being the foreigner where you live. It doesn't matter if the country where you live has the best health care and child care and the best food and the best weather. When you're a foreigner, there are some things that you have to deal with that the locals just don't. There are just some things that are difficult. Before we get started, I want to thank this week's sponsor, NordVPN. One of the things that makes me happy when I'm feeling homesick is the ability to watch HBO, Netflix, Česká televize, and stream no matter where I am, when I'm traveling abroad or here in the Czech Republic. And especially now, since we're able to travel, we use NordVPN to secure all our devices when we are getting onto public Wi-Fi. NordVPN protects your devices from bad actors who are trying to access your internet traffic. When I was traveling around the United States this summer, Hansa was constantly reminding me to turn on NordVPN to protect my phone and laptop when I was connecting in a train station, airport, or coffee shop on public Wi-Fi. Right now, NordVPN is offering a 2-year plan with a huge discount and a bonus gift if you sign up with my link and the code DREAMPRAGUE. When you do, you help me support this channel so I can keep making you more videos. So thank you. If you are living in a country with a new language you have to learn, it's going to be a struggle for a long time. You will struggle just trying to accomplish small things like asking where a certain thing is in the supermarket, or conversing with your telephone carrier, or even telling your landlord that you've got a leak. And even if you work really hard to study that language, it's going to be very hard for you to express yourself in the same way that you could in your native language. I always tell my language coach that if she just let me speak a little bit more English, she'd find that I'm a much more interesting person and we'd have a lot more to talk about. In Czech, I'm a bit boring. If you are a native English speaker in a foreign country, you're going to find that a lot of people shift the conversations to English. I've been at parties where every other person at the table was Czech, but they were all speaking English for my benefit. Now that's great, and it really helps me along, but it prevents me from learning the language because everyone around me is trying to accommodate me. Conversely, if you're Czech and you go to an English-speaking country, nobody is going to make one bit of effort to speak Czech. They're not even going to try. Now, this can be good because it makes it more urgent for you to learn English, but it's also incredibly difficult to get things done before you become conversant in English. And I'd say this is true of pretty much any other language. When you're a foreigner living in another country, don't expect the locals to be even at all interested in your culture. This is especially true in the United States. Unfortunately, Americans are a pretty self-centered country, and we just assume that everybody came to our country because they wanted a better life. So we're not really interested in what your hometown in Belarus was like. As a foreigner, this can make you feel really lonely and that the locals don't see you as anything but other. Ironically, if you're American or British and you move to a foreign country, those locals might be very interested in your home culture. This is because we are very culturally imperialist. We spread American music and British films and politics, etc. And so those locals might really be interested in you. It's an unfair balance, but this is what I've found in my experience. As a foreigner, you will very often be treated differently and according to the stereotype of your country. I've often had to defend myself to people of another background simply because I'm American. I've had to defend the American president, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I'm like, hey, I didn't vote for them. But because people think they know everything there is to know about Americans, I find that I have to prove that I am not like the stereotype. Conversely, a lot of Czechs tell me that people from Western cultures just automatically assume that Czechs are Russian, even though they're not even touching on a map. This can be very insulting to Czechs, and not because Russian people are bad, but because the two countries have a very complicated history. And it also shows just an ignorance and a lack of interest in what makes the Czech Republic Czech and what makes Russia Russian. I'm sure that this is what Central and South Americans feel like in the United States when people there just kind of lump them all into Spanish-speaking foreigner, even though their cultures are totally different and their individual histories are totally different too. You might learn how to perfectly order a beer in a Czech pub, or how to cheer at a Czech hockey game, or how to behave on a date with a Czech lady. But there are certain things you probably will never adapt to. For example, a Japanese person in the Czech Republic is never going to adapt to the fact that people are blowing their nose on the street. That's just considered rude in Japanese culture, and they're not going to start doing it just because everyone around them is doing it. I will never adapt to the fact that no one around me smiles or looks me in the eye, and yet when I leave the crowded doctor's waiting room, everyone will say, "Naschledanou," as if we've had some sort of personal experience with each other. It's weird. I can't get used to it. I'm sure a Czech living in California will never get used to walking through someone's home with their shoes on. They will feel that this is rude and they will feel very awkward about it. So much of Hansa and my humor relies on cultural shorthand, lines from movies and songs, and that is just not something you can easily convey to someone from another culture, even if they're speaking English with you. No matter how well I learned Czech, I still won't have the background of the movies that they watched in their childhood or the jokes that they used to make during communist times. Those are things that are just like in the air around us when we're raised, and it's really boring when someone has to explain the joke that they just made for the one foreigner in the room who still doesn't get it. Your career as a foreigner will be limited. This makes me think of the cliche of the Pakistani cab driver who was a well-known doctor back when he lived in Pakistan. It's kind of the price you pay for choosing to start your life over in a new country. It doesn't matter if you have a law degree or a medical degree. It's kind of irrelevant in the new country, and you just have to get the job that's offered to you. This, of course, depends on what age you've moved and where you did your education. Now, the working world is changing, and there are a lot of opportunities to work online for your home country while still living in your foreign country. But as of now, we've found that we've kind of had to make do with the jobs that were open to us or create a job for ourselves. Dating as a foreigner might be considered a pro and it might be considered a con. I think it all depends on your attitude and what you're looking for in a relationship. So the things that might be appropriate in your culture might be totally inappropriate in your new culture. This can be something like if people live with their parents until they get married, or who is expected to pay on dates. Also, as I mentioned, Hansa and my humor tends to depend on this shared background of common culture and language, and I don't know how we would do in relationships where we had to explain every joke that we made. As you settle down and maybe have kids with that person, all of the cultural traits from your family are going to start to show up. Things like, what is the role of the mother or the wife in the family? What is expected of the father? These can vary a lot depending on in which culture you were raised. I won't say that this is a negative though, because as I mentioned in the previous video, part of being a foreigner is really learn to be observant and to ask questions and to be curious. And that can lead you to be an even more observant and curious partner in a romantic relationship. And it can be a lot more interesting than just being in a relationship with the girl that grew up down the street from you and you have nothing really new to learn from them. Your intercultural relationship can become a huge part of your life as a foreigner. Okay, so what do you think? Do these negative parts of being a foreigner outweigh the positives that I talked about in this video? Or do you think that it's totally worth being a foreigner in a new country and that you're up for the adventure? Let me know in the comments below. Uvidíme se příští týden. Ahoj!